You found this video not by chance. A quiet hum beneath the surface of your days has led you here, a weariness not with the world, but with how deeply you lean on it for validation. It's a subtle exhaustion, the kind that settles in after endless, unconscious transactions of self, where your worth has been measured in the currency of others' regard. We're not here to offer a quick fix, but to gently unfurl a profound truth about the architecture of our psyche, a truth embedded in the wisdom of ancient thinkers and the silent cries of our own wounded selves. This journey will explore why the easy comfort of approval has become a subtle cage, how the echoes of our earliest needs have shaped our deepest desires, and why the self we present to the world might be only a ghost of what truly resides within. We will trace the invisible threads that bind our identity to external whispers, a process that begins with the deepest reaches of our being. In the unfolding of this exploration, we will unmask. And real quick, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more videos just like this. Now let's keep going. You've built a quiet kingdom within yourself, a place of intricate protocols and unspoken rules. At its heart sits an invisible throne, occupied not by a king of your own making, but by an imagined judge. This sovereign, whose gaze you constantly feel, demands a specific performance, a curated version of you that solicits its nod of approval. Each decision, each word, each carefully chosen smile is a petition laid at this unseen altar. The air in this inner court is thick with anticipation, a constant, low-level anxiety that your offering will be found wanting. You rehearse your lines, refine your posture, all in service to this phantom monarch. This isn't about vanity, it's about survival. It's about a deeply ingrained instinct to belong, to avoid the chilling silence of rejection. Your inner world has become a stage for an eternal play, and you are both the actor and the sole audience member terrified of judgment. The applause you crave is not for artistic merit, but for a desperate assurance that you are still worthy of existing. This hidden reign, this invisible throne, dictates your every move, shaping the self you believe you are. But what happens when the whispers of the audience become too loud to ignore, yet too hollow to satisfy? We must now look into the mirror itself. The first mirror you encountered was not made of glass. It was the face of a parent, a caregiver, a significant other. In their eyes, you first saw yourself reflected, and in that reflection, you began to learn what was worthy and what was not. Every smile, every flicker of a frown became a piece of feedback, a gentle shaping of your emerging self. This early mirroring is essential, a primal act of recognition that anchors us. But when that reflection is conditional, when love is doled out like a carefully measured ration for good behavior, a subtle wound takes root. You learn that your inherent worth is not a given. It is something to be earned, something contingent on fulfilling the expectations etched into those early gazes. This leaves an imprint, a psychic scar that draws you toward other mirrors, other faces that might offer the validation you were denied in your formative years. You seek out those who will assure you that the self you present is seen, is appreciated, is, in essence, enough. This pursuit of external validation is an echo of that first, vital encounter. It is a search for an absent wholeness, a constant yearning to see a complete and accepted self reflected back. This search, however, leads to a peculiar kind of transaction. Approval isn't just a feeling, it's a currency. And like any currency, it's part of a transaction. At its core, this exchange is deeply intertwined with a wound from your past. You offer a version of yourself, a performance, a compliance, and in return, you receive a feeling of safety, of belonging, of being enough. This transaction is often unconscious, a subtle bargaining that began in childhood. You learn that certain behaviors, certain agreements, certain silences would earn you a smile, a word of praise, a moment of peace. These moments were vital, like sips of water in a landscape of potential drought, but the wound remains. The fear that next time, the offering will not be enough, that the smile will not appear, that the silence will turn to disapproval. So you continue the transaction. Each act of seeking approval is a way of trying to heal that original wound, but like pouring water onto sand, it never truly fills the void. It only creates a temporary dampening. This constant negotiation, this giving of yourself in exchange for a fleeting sense of worth, binds you ever tighter to the external gaze. The applause you seek is merely a bandage for a deeper ache. And this is how the very things we crave, the affirmations we chase, can become a gilded cage. The roar of applause, the chorus of likes, the hum of positive comments, these might feel like liberation, like freedom to finally be seen and accepted. But for many, these accolades are not a key unlocking a door, but the bars of an increasingly sophisticated cage. Each clap, each congratulatory word, reinforces the walls of this containment. You begin to tailor your actions, your thoughts, even your very being, to elicit more of this sweet sound. The cage is built not of metal, but of expectations, both perceived and real. To step outside these bars, to deviate from the approved script, would be to risk the silence that feels like abandonment. This is the paradox. The very validation you sought becomes the architect of your confinement. You are trapped by the very thing that made you feel safe. The bars are subtle. They are the fear of disappointing someone, the terror of being misunderstood, the dread of losing the affection you've worked so hard to cultivate. You become a prisoner in your own skin, performing a role that granted you entry into the good graces of others, but denied you the freedom to be your unvarnished self. The gilded cage gleams, but it is still a cage. And what is this role you play? What is this persona that earns such outward favor but hides such inner constriction? It often belongs to the false king. There are those who wear crowns, who command attention, who are lauded by crowds. But some of these crowns are not forged of gold, but of ash. The false king is not one who has earned his authority through genuine leadership or selfhood, but one who has inherited a role or adopted a persona that pleases others. His reign is built on borrowed legitimacy, on a carefully constructed illusion. His pronouncements are often hollow, his decrees based on what he believes the people wish to hear, rather than on any inner conviction. He is a reflection of the collective desire for order and power, but he himself is empty of true substance. His kingdom is precarious, his rule dependent on maintaining the approval of his subjects. Any dissent, any questioning of his fabricated authority threatens to crumble his entire world. He lives in constant fear of exposure, of the moment when the gathered masses will see through the veneer and realize his throne is built on sand. His greatest achievement is his ability to keep this charade going, to maintain the illusion of his own importance. This false king is a potent symbol of a self that prioritizes external recognition over internal truth, a self crowned with the ashes of unlived authenticity. This illusion is often maintained by a denial of the true self, a shadow self that lurks just beyond the spotlight. The false king is never truly alone. He presides over a puppet court composed of fragmented aspects of himself that he has refused to acknowledge, aspects he has relegated to the realm of shadow. Jung understood this dark mirror, this hidden domain where all that is repressed resides, waiting for its moment. This shadow is not inherently evil, but it is wild, untamed, and often carries the weight of our deepest fears and unfulfilled desires. The false king, in his insistence on appearing whole and acceptable, banishes these parts of himself into darkness. But out of sight does not mean out of existence. These banished elements, the unacknowledged desires and the suppressed emotions, begin to act independently in the hidden chambers of the psyche. They are the puppeteers who secretly pull the strings of the false king's actions. His decisions, his anxieties, his irrational behaviors, these are often manifestations of his unintegrated shadow. He is a monarch controlled by the very darkness he pretends not to possess. This internalized conflict, this silent war within, creates a profound inner dissonance. The outward show of control is a fragile facade over an inner chaos, a chaos that feeds the very system of needing approval from the outside. This condition, this self-imposed reign of the shadow, leaves the individual feeling hollow, detached even from their own being. It's a state Nietzsche understood with stark clarity. Imagine a grand theater, its stage meticulously set, its polished floor reflecting a dazzling light. Yet upon this stage, there is no actor. There is only a mask, perfectly formed, perfectly expressive, but utterly devoid of the life it mimics. This is the hollow self, a concept Nietzsche grappled with. When we abdicate our inner authority to external validation, when we become adept at performing the self that others wish to see, we begin to hollow ourselves out. The essence, the raw, untamed core of our being, is gradually chipped away, replaced by a veneer of pleasing traits and agreeable habits. We become echoes of opinions, reflections of desires that are not our own. The vibrant, often messy, individual is lost, replaced by an efficient, compliant automaton. Nietzsche warned of this emptiness, this placelessness in a world where traditional values had collapsed. Without a grounding in one's own will, one's own yea and nay, one becomes utterly susceptible to the wills of others. We are adrift, seeking moorings in the superficial approval of the crowd. This hollow self is the consequence of living outside oneself, of defining existence not by internal affirmation but by external reception. It is a self that questions its own substance, its own right to exist apart from the performance. And what fuels this performance? Often, it is the deep, primal architect of shame. Shame is not merely an emotion, it is a sculptor. It reshapes our perception of ourselves, carving deep valleys of inadequacy into the landscape of our being. From our earliest moments, when we felt we were too much or not enough, shame began its work, becoming the invisible architect of our internal world. It whispers that our natural impulses are wrong, that our true desires are corrupt, that our very existence is a burden. This primal architect doesn't just build walls around us, it dictates the very foundation upon which we believe we stand. The need for approval, the frantic chase for validation, is often a desperate attempt to plaster over the cracks that shame has created. It's an effort to convince the world, and more importantly ourselves, that we are not fundamentally flawed. Each compliment, each moment of acceptance, feels like a temporary reprieve from the sentence shame has passed. It's a fleeting demolition of the walls shame has erected, only for them to be rebuilt stronger, fortified by the fear of renewed exposure. This ongoing battle against an internalized judge, a judge whose voice is the echo of primitive shame, leaves us perpetually off balance. We are forever seeking an external absolution that can never truly touch the deeper judgment. And this perpetual seeking creates a destructive loop. You find yourself in a cycle, a perpetual motion machine of seeking and receiving, of wanting and then needing more. This is the praise-poison loop. The initial rush of positive feedback, the warm glow of recognition, feels like a balm, a momentary cure for the underlying unease. But the poison is in the effect. It reinforces the idea that your worth is tied to this external validation. The moment the attention fades, the familiar emptiness creeps back, leaving you with a deeper craving than before. You then intensify your efforts, performing more elaborately, striving harder to earn the next hit of praise. It's an addiction, subtly debilitating, draining your energy and diverting you from your own authentic path. This loop is insidious because praise feels good. It's designed to feel good. But when it becomes the primary source of your sense of self, it transforms from nourishment to a toxic elixir. Each cycle brings you closer to believing that you are only that which is praised, and that without it, you cease to exist. This manufactured self, built on the shaky ground of external affirmation, is incredibly fragile. It lives in constant fear of the day when the praise stops, a fear that is deeply connected to a sense of exile from one's own true being. Deep within you resides an oracle, a source of innate wisdom, a quiet knowing. But much like the exile of a rightful king, this oracle has been banished from its own domain. Its voice, once clear and resonant, has been silenced by the clamor of external demands and the subtle tyranny of conditional approval. You've learned to distrust this inner voice, to see it as unreliable, perhaps even dangerous. It speaks of desires that might be inconvenient, of truths that might be uncomfortable, of paths that lead away from the safety of conformity. So you've built walls around this oracle, locking it away in the forgotten chambers of your psyche. You choose instead to listen to the chorus of external voices, the feedback, the opinions, the expectations that promise acceptance and belonging. The exile of your inner oracle is the root of much spiritual and psychological pain. It is the source of the feeling that something vital is missing, that a fundamental aspect of your being is lost or repressed. You are then left to navigate life by second-hand maps, by the interpretations of others, rather than by the compass of your own truth. This is the fundamental imprisonment. Until the oracle can be reclaimed, the illusion of identity persists. Your identity has become a complex spiral, a dizzying descent into performance and external reflection. Each turn of the spiral represents a compromise, a small surrender of your true self in exchange for a fleeting sense of belonging. You start by seeking approval for minor choices, then major decisions, until the very core of your being feels defined by how others perceive you. This spiral is not a path of growth, but of containment. It leads inward, but not toward greater authenticity. Instead, it tightens the grip of external judgment. The more you spiral, the harder it becomes to remember the original self, the self that existed before the need for approval took root. You become a master of adaptation, a chameleon of personality, but this skill comes at the cost of genuine selfhood. The question then arises, not about how you adapt, but whether you can stop. This constant dance of adaptation, this performance for external validation, is a profound refusal of your own deepest nature. It is a willful blindness to the true self that resides within. The next step is to understand the courage it takes for the soul to refuse this ongoing charade. There comes a moment, often heralded by a deep quietude or a sudden, jarring dissonance, when the soul refuses to perform any longer. It's not a dramatic rebellion, but a profound weariness, a spiritual exhaustion with the endless charade. This refusal is not about rejection of others, but a quiet, determined reclamation of self. The soul, in its infinite patience, has endured the endless transactional exchanges, the borrowed identities, the performances designed to solicit praise. And now, it simply stops. It can no longer muster the energy to maintain the facade. This refusal can feel terrifying. It's like stepping off a moving train, the landscape suddenly unfamiliar, the ground beneath your feet uncertain. The safety of the known performance is gone, replaced by the vast, unmapped territory of authenticity. It is the primal scream of the self, finally unable to tolerate the silence of its own true voice. It is the beginning of a journey not of healing, but of dismantling, of uncovering what lies beneath the layers of performance. This refusal opens the door to a different kind of connection, one not built on what you offer, but on who you are. It paves the way for a love that is not contingent. Conditional love acts like a fragile edifice, beautiful from a distance, but hollow within. It is built on the premise that affection and acceptance are earned, that they are a reward for meeting certain standards, for adhering to specific expectations. When the performance stops, or when the conditions are no longer met, this fragile structure crumbles. The collapse of conditional love brings with it a profound sense of loss. It's not just the loss of affection, but the dissolution of the very framework upon which your sense of worth was built. You are left standing amidst the ruins, questioning the foundation of what you believed was solid. This is the moment when the true cost of seeking external validation becomes starkly apparent. The applause fades, the validation disappears, and you are left with the stark realization that the love you received was never solely for you, but for the role you played. It's a painful but necessary revelation. It forces you to confront the absence of unconditional acceptance, both from others and, perhaps more importantly, from yourself. This confrontation with absence is the key to finding a different kind of reflection. What happens when you stand before a mirror and there is no approval to be found, no reflection that says, "You're doing great" or "You look perfect"? It is a void, a silence that can feel vast and terrifying. This is the mirror without approval, the ultimate test of self-acceptance. In this stark, unadorned reflection, you are stripped of the external affirmations that have formed the scaffolding of your identity. There is no audience to impress, no judgment to appease. There is only you, raw and unvarnished. The pain of this absence is profound because it forces you to confront the possibility that your worth is not dependent on what others think. It challenges the deeply ingrained belief that existence itself is contingent on external validation. This encounter with absence is not an end point, but a doorway. A doorway into a space where a new kind of seeing can begin, a seeing that doesn't require the gaze of others. It asks the most fundamental question of all. If the need for approval, the desperate craving for external validation, were suddenly lifted, what would remain? If the invisible leash of "what will they think" were to dissolve, what path would your feet naturally find? This is the question that hangs in the air, a profound and often unsettling inquiry. To be free of the need for permission is to stand at the precipice of true autonomy. It is to acknowledge that your worth is inherent, not granted. It means the courage to explore your own depths, to listen to your own inner compass, even when it points in directions that others deem unconventional or wrong. This journey of unmasking, of shedding the layers of performance, is not about finding a new identity to present, but about unearthing the one that has always been there, waiting in the quiet spaces between the applause. It is the beginning of living, not as a reflection of others, but as a vital, original presence in the world. Now that concludes this video. Make sure to subscribe for more videos and hit that notification bell so you never miss a new video. We'll see you in the next one.